The great hall of Moonfire Palace glowed with silver light on the night of the blood moon ceremony. Hundreds of wolves from every noble house had gathered beneath the tall stone arches, their eyes fixed on the raised platform where the Alpha King stood. Torches lined the walls, and the scent of ancient magic filled the air, thick and electric, the kind that only came once every 100 years, when fate itself chose a king's mate. Ilara Voss stood near the back of the crowd, half hidden behind 2 taller wolves from a noble family. She had never expected to be anywhere near the front. She was an Omega, the lowest rank in the pack, someone people looked past without noticing. Her mother had died when she was young, and her father had left the kingdom soon after, leaving her to grow up in the shadow of families who barely remembered her name. She had come to the ceremony only because attendance was required of every wolf in the kingdom. She wanted to stand quietly, watch the ritual, and slip away before anyone noticed her at all. That plan ended the moment the royal priestess raised her hands and called out the mate bond spell. The silver mist that always appeared during the ceremony curled through the hall, twisting and turning as it searched for the king's true match. Everyone believed it would settle on one of the daughters from the noble houses. Instead, the mist rushed past them all, moving through the crowd like a living thing, and wrapped gently around Ilara's shoulders. Gasps rippled through the hall. Ilara felt her heart drop into her stomach as every single eye turned toward her. "It cannot be her," someone whispered. "An Omega? Mate to the king?" Another voice hissed. Ilara wanted to disappear. She looked up toward the platform, toward Kael Ashgrave, the Alpha King, a wolf so powerful that even the ground seemed to respect his steps. His eyes were sharp, gray like storm clouds, and when they landed on her, she saw something she had never wanted to see directed at herself: disgust. Kael's jaw tightened. He was the strongest alpha the kingdom had seen in generations, born into a bloodline of kings, raised to believe that his mate would be someone equally powerful, someone who could stand beside him and share his throne with pride. An Omega with no family name, no rank, and no power was not what he had imagined, not even in his worst dreams. The priestess stepped forward, her voice trembling slightly. "My king, the spell does not lie. She is your fated mate." The hall fell silent, waiting. Kael looked at Ilara for a long moment, then he did something no one expected, something that would echo through the kingdom for years to come. "I reject her," he said, his voice carrying clearly across the hall. "I will not accept a mate who brings nothing to this throne. Whatever the spell says, I refuse the bond." The words hit Ilara like physical blows. A public rejection was the deepest wound a wolf could suffer, a mark that would follow her for the rest of her life. She felt the stares of the crowd, felt the whispers already forming, felt her own wolf whimper somewhere deep inside her chest, small and wounded. She did not wait for the ceremony to end. She turned and ran, pushing through the crowd, ignoring the voices calling after her, ignoring the sound of her own name being spoken with pity and scorn. She ran out of the palace doors, down the stone steps, and into the night, not stopping until the trees of the Whispering Woods swallowed her whole. The forest was quiet, lit only by moonlight filtering through the leaves. Ilara collapsed against the trunk of an old oak tree, her breathing ragged, tears finally falling now that no one could see her. She had spent her whole life being overlooked, and she had told herself that being invisible didn't hurt as much as being seen and rejected. Tonight, she learned how wrong she had been. "Why did this happen to me?" she whispered to the empty forest. "Why did fate choose me only to be humiliated?" The wind answered with silence, but something else stirred within her. A warmth, deep in her chest, began to spread outward, gentle at first, like a candle flame catching in the dark. She pressed her hand against her heart, startled by the sensation. It felt like something was waking up. Ilara had always been told her wolf was weak, that it explained why she had never advanced beyond Omega rank, despite years of trying. But the warmth inside her did not feel weak. It felt like power that had been sleeping, waiting for the right moment to rise. She remembered, suddenly, a memory from childhood, her mother, kneeling beside her bed, whispering words she had never fully understood. "You carry something precious, Ilara, something the world is not ready to see. Promise me you will hide it until you are strong enough to protect yourself. At the time, Ilara had thought her mother was simply telling her a bedtime story. Now, kneeling in the dirt beneath an ancient oak tree, rejected in front of the entire kingdom, she understood. Her mother had not been telling a story, she had been protecting a secret. The warmth inside her chest grew brighter, spreading through her limbs, down to her fingertips, until her entire body seemed to hum with energy. The moonlight above her seemed to grow stronger, or maybe it only seemed that way because something inside her was finally answering its call. Ilara closed her eyes and let it happen. When she opened them again, the forest looked different. Colors were sharper, sounds were clearer, and she could feel the heartbeat of every living creature within the woods, from the smallest bird asleep in its nest to the deer resting beneath distant trees. Her body shifted without pain, without effort, as if it had been waiting years for permission to become what it truly was. Where an ordinary gray wolf might have emerged, instead a wolf of pale silver fur stepped out beneath the moonlight, fur that seemed to catch and hold the light itself, eyes glowing faintly gold. She was larger than any wolf she had ever seen, and when she let out a soft howl, the entire forest seemed to fall silent in response, as though every creature recognized something ancient and important had returned. Ilara did not know it yet, but wolves across the kingdom felt that howl in their bones. It was the call of the Silver Crown bloodline, a royal line thought to have vanished a century ago after a war between rival packs nearly destroyed it. Her mother had been the last surviving heir, and she had hidden her daughter's true nature to keep her safe from anyone who might see her as a threat or a prize to be used. Now, awakened by heartbreak and rejection, that bloodline had returned. By the time morning light broke through the trees, Ilara understood what she had become. She shifted back into her human form, her heart steady, her mind clearer than it had ever been. The pain of the previous night was still there, but it no longer controlled her. Something new had taken its place, quiet, steady strength. She walked back toward the palace, not with her head down as she had the night before, but with her shoulders straight and her steps sure. Word of the silver wolf's howl had already reached the palace by the time she arrived. Guards who had ignored her for years now stood straighter as she passed. Nobles who had whispered cruel words about her the night before now stared with open uncertainty, unsure how to treat someone whose true nature they no longer understood. Kale was waiting in the courtyard when she arrived, his expression a mixture of confusion and disbelief. He had heard the reports from his warriors, stories of a silver wolf with golden eyes moving through the whispering woods, radiating power that some described as feeling like standing too close to the sun. "Is it true?" he asked, his voice quieter than it had been the night before. "Are you the one they saw in the forest?" Ilara met his gaze without flinching. Yes. Kale studied her carefully, searching for a lie, but he found none. He had rejected her in front of the entire kingdom, believing she had nothing to offer him or his throne. Now he stood before someone whose bloodline, if the old stories were true, could rival his own family's claim to power. "Why did you never tell anyone what you were?" he asked. "Because I didn't know," Ilara said simply. "My mother hid it to protect me. Until last night, I believed I was exactly what everyone said I was: weak, unimportant, easy to reject." Her words carried no anger, only quiet truth, and somehow that made them land harder than any accusation could have. Kale lowered his eyes, and for the first time since she had known of him, he looked uncertain. "I was wrong to reject you the way I did. I let pride decide how I treated someone before I understood who they truly were." Ilara did not answer right away. She thought about the years of being overlooked, the night of public humiliation, and the awakening that had followed. She thought about her mother's warning to remain hidden until she was strong enough to protect herself. She was strong now, stronger than she had ever imagined possible, and that strength gave her something she had never had before: choice. "I don't need your apology to know my own worth," she said finally. "I learned that on my own, in the middle of a forest, alone." News of the Silver Crown's return spread quickly through the kingdom, and with it came both allies and threats. Old families who remembered the war that had nearly destroyed her bloodline began maneuvering for position, some hoping to align themselves with her rising power, others fearing what her return might mean for the balance of the kingdom. Ilara faced these challenges with a steadiness that surprised everyone, including herself. She had spent years believing she had no place in the world of the powerful, and now she found herself navigating it with quiet confidence. She listened more than she spoke, observed more than she reacted, and slowly began building relationships with those who respected her for who she was becoming, not simply for the power she carried. KL, meanwhile, worked to earn back a measure of the respect he had lost through his public rejection. He did not expect Ilara to forget what had happened, and he did not ask her to forgive him quickly. Instead, he showed his change through actions, standing beside her during difficult council meetings, defending her position when others tried to dismiss her, and acknowledging his earlier mistake openly, rather than hiding from it. Over time, something new grew between them, built not on the fate that had first connected them, but on mutual respect earned through honesty and effort. Ilara was careful not to rush into anything simply because tradition expected it. She had already learned the danger of letting others define her worth, and she was not willing to make that mistake again, even with someone who had begun to change. Months later, when the kingdom held a new ceremony to formally recognize the return of the Silver Crown line, Ilara stood on the same platform where she had once been publicly rejected. This time, she stood there not as someone waiting to be chosen, but as someone claiming her own place among the kingdom's leaders. She looked out at the crowd, the same nobles who had once whispered about her, the same warriors who had once ignored her, and she felt no need for their approval. She had found her strength in the darkest moment of her life, alone in a forest, believing she had lost everything. Instead, she had discovered who she truly was. Ilara Foss, once dismissed as an ordinary Omega, now stood as a symbol that true power was never given by bloodlines or ceremonies alone. It was built through resilience, through the courage to rise after being broken, and through the quiet strength of knowing one's own worth, regardless of what anyone else believed. As the moon rose high above the palace once more, Ilara understood that her story was no longer about the night she had been rejected. It was about everything she had become afterward, and everything she still chose to become, on her own terms, in her own time.